Welcome back to another video, and today we got our Week 15 college basketball Power 40 rankings, and March is right around the corner. And for those of you who don't know what happens in March, we predict every single conference tournament. Yes, even the bad ones, like the SWAC, the random ones. We predict all. I believe there's 31 now because there's no more Pac-12, so all 31. So yeah, that is right around the corner. That happens at the start of March, and then obviously we do our March Madness stuff. And we're doing these every single week as well, so make sure you subscribe. It's a great time to get involved in the channel. Make sure you turn on the noties to make sure you don't miss whenever we upload. We also do college football, NFL. I know those both just wrapped up. We're doing NBA every week now, and then MLB season right around the corner. Don't want to miss out on any of that content. So if you're new around here, make sure you subscribe. We're trying to hit 1,000 by the end of the year. That would be greatly appreciated. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into the Power 40. And I want to start this off by saying the bubble this year is just it's really bad. I mean, there's so many teams like all the way up to like 36. I mean, like they're 36 through like 55. It's like I don't know who to put. I mean, there maybe not that crazy, but like 36 to maybe like 47, 48. Like there's a lot of teams that are just like right here. I don't really feel like they deserve to be in the Power 40, but like I mean, somebody's got to go in there. Like just the bubble this year is just terrible. With that being said, the team at number 40 actually lost last week, but they're going to stay where they're at just because, I mean, you got teams like Arkansas, Georgia. I mean, there's teams outside of the Power 40 that are like right there, but I just feel like West Virginia at this point deserves to be number 40. West Virginia this past week lost at TCU. That's not a great loss, and they got a win later in the week over Utah. That's not like a special, that's not a crazy win at all. They're ranked 44th in KenPom. They're 15-8 right now. Defensively, they're very strong, but offensively, that definitely does worry me for how far they can get in the tournament. I know Tucker DeVries has been out pretty much the whole season, but Javon Small's been very good for them, 19 points a game. But like I said, I mean, you could argue a lot of other teams should be in the spot. You got teams Arkansas, Pitt, Wake Forest, San Diego State, maybe even like VCU. I guess you could throw Ohio State in there. You could throw a lot. I mean, there's a lot of just not great teams, at least in my opinion, on the bubble right now. But I'm gonna keep West Virginia put where they're at 40. Moving on to number 39. I'm going to go ahead and throw Nebraska in here at number 39. They're another one of these bubble teams. They've been in the rankings, I believe at some point they were here. They just beat Ohio State. I figured whoever won that game I'd go ahead and throw in near the bottom of the Power 40. They've been picking up some decent wins. They last week they won at Oregon, and then previously this past week they beat Washington and Ohio State. When looking at Nebraska, I mean they're probably in right now, but like I said, the bubble's just so bad. I mean, it's not. I mean, they're ranked 39th overall in KenPom. They're pretty solid. They're 16-8. I don't know. I'm gonna put them at 39. They got a nice one over Ohio State. This week they play home against Maryland. I mean that's Thursday. If they can win that game, that should probably secure them a tournament spot. But, I mean, like I said, the bubble's just so weak this year that they probably will get in even if they lose. Number 38 is going to be Vanderbilt. I know they just lost this past week. But like I said, I mean, so many of these teams around here, I don't know who to put in. I'm going to keep Vanderbilt. They did just lose at Florida, but they got a nice bounce back win over Texas. Texas is one of those bubble teams. This week they play home against Auburn, which is actually later today, and then at Tennessee. Is that this week? Yeah, I think that is this week. Yeah, those are two very tough games. If they can keep those close, they're 17-6, so they have a very strong record. But they do kind of lack some of those non-conference wins. They're also ranked 40th in KenPom, but they are 17-6 in the SEC. I'll keep them at 38. Number 37 is going to be Oklahoma, moving down one. You could argue Vanderbilt has a better record; they should be ahead. But Oklahoma did 2 weeks ago beat Vanderbilt by 30. This past week, Oklahoma lost by 28 at Auburn, and then they lost by 18 against Tennessee. Those are two elite teams. I mean, maybe you could argue they should have dropped more, but they're 16-7. Tomorrow they play at Missouri. That's a huge game for them because Oklahoma is again one of these bubble teams. I will say though, Jeremiah Fears, he's been amazing. He's averaging 16 a game. Jalen Moore is averaging almost 18 a game. I think Oklahoma could actually make some noise come tournament time. They're ranked 36 right now overall in KenPom. Their offense is inside of the top 25, so Oklahoma could definitely, make a bit of a run if they do get in. I think they should. Number 36 is going to be Baylor. Now Baylor dropping 2 spots. I had them at 34, but yesterday they lost at Houston. I didn't expect them to win that, but keep in mind earlier they did lose, or last week they lost at Texas Tech, so they lost 2 of their last 3, so I had to drop them a little bit. I know it's at Texas Tech and at Houston, and neither of those games were blowouts, but I do got to drop them a little bit. They're 15-9. They got a huge game Saturday. That's a big bubble game, home against West Virginia. Both those teams are probably teetering within the 8, 9, maybe 10 range for West Virginia. So that's a huge game for both these teams. Baylor's a very talented team. Norchad Omier, VJ Edgecombe. They got Jeremy Roach. I think Baylor is probably going to get in. They're ranked 27th in KenPom right now, 10th overall in offense, but just barely inside the top 70 in defense. I think Baylor should be fine though, but it's worth mentioning. Number 35 is going to be Oregon. Oregon has just taken a huge step back. I mean, they've lost 5 in a row now, and I believe they've lost 5 in a row. But not only that, I think they've lost 6 of their last 7 games. Oregon has taken a huge fall. They're 16-8 now. They started off they lost 6 of the last 7 games, so that means they were 15-2 at one point. Now they're 16-8. So yeah, this week they play home against Northwestern and home against Rutgers. Those are 2 must-win games because now Oregon is getting into that 8-9 range where they weren't though. I mean, a couple of weeks ago they were probably in the 3 seed range. They did have a very good, strong non-conference resume. Last week they played at Michigan and at Michigan State. They played Michigan very close. Michigan State they lost by 12, but they actually did look pretty solid in that game. Oregon's ranked 40th in KenPom, top 50 in both offense and defense, but neither of them are really jumping off the page. But yeah, Oregon's taking a huge tumble, and hopefully they need to win this week. They need to win out. They don't need to win out like regular season, but this week they need to win out this week. They play home against Northwestern and home against Rutgers again. Maybe they lose, but like both those games are at home. I guess both those teams are like needing wins if they really want to make a last-second tournament push. But those 2 teams are not tournament teams right now. Both those teams are probably going to have to make a big run, maybe even win the Big Ten in the conference tournament. So Oregon needs to win both those games, especially with them both being at home. Number 34 is going to be Gonzaga. You could argue 34 through 38, maybe even 39 you could throw in there. It could just be in any order. I wouldn't disagree. Gonzaga, what are they? They're 4th? Or no, I think they're 3rd in the Mountain West. Behind St. Mary's and San Francisco. And Santa Clara is right behind them. They're only a half game back. Gonzaga's 18-7. You wouldn't expect this from them. They actually have a huge game home against San Francisco Thursday night. That's gonna be, that's a big game because San Francisco's getting to that point where they might actually have a chance of getting an at-large bid. They're 20-6. At this point, I don't think so. But with the bubble being so weak this year, maybe the West Coast Conference can get 3 teams in. I wouldn't call that crazy. I think that's actually a possibility. Now, Gonzaga is still very high in KenPom just because their offense is so good. They're ranked 13th in KenPom, so the computer numbers love Gonzaga. They always do. But yeah, resume-wise, definitely a step down from previous years, so that's why I got them so low. 33 is going to be Drake. They continue to win, and Drake's looking like a team where even if they lose their conference tournament, they're 22-2. Um, it's gonna be hard not to put them in. They have a non-conference win over Vanderbilt too, non-conference win over Kansas State, who's actually looked better as of late. Kansas State's been very hot. Um, Drake might be just fine if they lose their conference tournament, which is crazy. They're 22-2, but like I said, the bubble this year is just it's just so bad. I mean, I think Drake might be just fine. They move up 5 spots, kind of just because everyone else in front of them lost. So they'll move up 5. Number 32 is going to be Utah State moving up 1. At this point, Utah State's probably a very good chance to get in. They're 21-3. Like I said, the bubble's just so bad this year. 21-3 record should be good enough. They have a huge week this week though. They play home against Colorado State. That is tonight. Very big game. Colorado State's one of those teams in the Mountain West that's looking to get in. You got team New Mexico and Utah State are probably both in. San Diego State has a very good non-conference, but in conference they've struggled a little bit. They're 15-6. They're on the bubble right now. Colorado State and Boise State are definitely on the outside looking in. So Colorado State, that would be a huge win for them going into Utah State to win. But Utah State also has a game at New Mexico on Sunday. That's going to be for what is that? Is that for yeah? That's going to be for first place in the Mountain West. So yeah, Utah State huge week this week. They're playing two of the good Mountain West teams both in the same week. So Utah State's got a pretty tough schedule this week. We'll see what they can do. Number 31 is going to be St. Mary's. St. Mary's was climbing up. Now they lost, so they have to fall back down. But I think they're going to be just fine. They're 21-4. They lost at San Francisco by 1. That's a huge win for San Francisco. Can't stress that enough. Tonight they play Santa Clara at home. Santa Clara is another team that could maybe sneak their way into the tournament. I wouldn't rule it out completely yet. Santa Clara is 17-9. So St. Mary's, hopefully they can win that game. But I think St. Mary's should be in at this point. I mean, they're just playing so well. And even KenPom, they're ranked 21st in KenPom, top 10 in defense. I feel like St. Mary's has got to be in at 21-4 right now. Number 30 is going to be New Mexico. I think this is kind of the last of the actual bubble teams. I feel like from past New Mexico. But I mean, is New Mexico even a bubble? I don't know. They're 20-4. They're first in the Mountain West. They won at Utah State by 19 points. They beat Colorado State by 22 at home. New Mexico's playing lights out right now. They're like I said, 20-4. But later this week, Utah State comes to town. That's going to be for first place in the Mountain West, I believe. New Mexico's ranked 35th in KenPom. They got a top 25 defense. This is a very good Lobos team. Once again, we'll see what they can do in the tournament. I think they should be in. By the way, Donovan Dent averaging almost 20 points per game. He's probably going to be an All-American. He has been absolutely lights out for the Lobos. But yeah, I think at this point they got to be in. I mean, they're probably going to get a 7 or 8, I would assume. Maybe a 9 at the lowest. I can't see them getting a 10 just because of how weak. I mean, look at who's behind. I mean, maybe Baylor, teams like that, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, Oregon, just because they're in a better conference, they get a higher seed. But, I mean, at this point, I'd say New Mexico is playing better than everyone behind them. So, but yeah, I think that'll do with the bubble teams. Everything from here on out should be pretty comfortably in. Illinois is going to drop down 6 spots. Now, computer-wise, the numbers are still extremely high in Illinois. They're 16-8, so they've racked up some losses, but still ranked 15th in KenPom, top 15 in offense, top 25 in defense. Illinois is one of only 9 teams to fit the national champion criteria right now. Does that mean they're going to win all? I don't think so. This week they have 2 huge games, home against UCLA, and then home against Michigan State. Those are, I can't stress it enough. Illinois has got a tough 4-game stretch coming up. They play home against UCLA, home against Michigan State. That's this week. Next week they play at Wisconsin, and then home against Duke. I mean, there is a world where they lose all 4 of those games. I don't think that'll happen. I think they'll probably find. I don't know. I think Illinois is a really good team, but I see them. I find it hard to believe that they'll win maybe even three of those games. I definitely see two. I could see three. I don't think they'll win all four. I could see them winning three of those four, but I think realistically it's probably more like two. But that's gonna be tough. Coming out of this four-game stretch, they're gonna be 18-10. I think they'll be fine. They have a very good resume, a lot of really good wins. Kasparas Yakichonas, 16 points per game. He's a freshman. He's been amazing. But yeah, Illinois, they've got a lot more losses than a lot of teams around them. But I think it's fine. I think come tournament time, it'll actually benefit them for playing such a hard schedule. But yeah, they do have to move down six this past week. Who do they lose to? They lost to, yeah, Rutgers. That's you can't lose to Rutgers. That was a bad loss. But yeah, this week huge week, huge stretch coming up for Illinois. Number 28 is going to be Louisville. I guess you could argue. I guess you could say Louisville is technically a bubble team, but I feel like they got to be in, right? I feel like they got to be in. They're 18-6. I mean, maybe just because they play in the ACC, they get a little bit of a bump down. Chucky Hepburn, though, he's been really good for them, 15 points a game. When looking at KenPom, let's see, 29th in KenPom. Yeah, I mean, they're top 35 in defense. They're top 30 in offense. I mean, I feel like they got to be in. I don't know. Because I always say that, and then there's always those teams that just get left out. But I feel like Louisville's. I don't know. They're 18-6. I mean, come on. Yeah, I feel like as of right now they are in. I'm trying to decide if they're like a lock. Probably not a lock at this point, but very good chance to get in. I mean, they play their remaining schedule is very easy, so they probably win almost, if not every single game they have left. Number 27 is going to be UConn, dropping down 7. UConn was back into the top 25 after being out of it for, at least in my rankings, for a couple weeks. And now UConn drops back out. Now, this is tough because, honestly, I don't want to drop UConn 7 spots. I think they're probably, most other weeks, they're probably deserving of top 25. There's definitely a tier gap, I'll say this. You could throw Louisville and Illinois in there. But 29 and up, there's definitely a tier gap there. But yeah, I didn't want to drop UConn down 7 spots, but so many teams behind them did very impressive things this past week. UConn only played one game this week. They lost at home to St. John's by 6. We'll get to St. John's in a little bit. But I mean, like, that's not a bad loss. I mean, it's a 6-point loss to St. John's, who's what, 21-3 right now. And I believe they're top 10 team in the AP poll. We'll get to where they are in mine. But UConn, huge game at Creighton this week. That is a massive game. That's probably going to decide, a lot for the Big East standings. Well, that will decide a lot. But yeah, UConn defensively outside of the top 100. Feel like, I mean, we say this every week. The defense it's got to improve, and I think at this point it's probably a lost cause. If I'm them, I'm just doubling down on the offense, doubling down on the pace of play. In terms of tempo, I'm actually interested to see. I want to see where they're actually ranked in tempo. Let's see. UConn tempo, yeah, 333rd. That's like, is that might be the slowest. I forget how many teams are in D1. That might be the very last. I don't think it is. I think there's a little bit more than that. But that's like near the bottom. That's really bad. If I'm UConn, I'm just gonna speed up the game, just try to outscore. But yeah, we'll see. They play at Creighton. That's a huge opportunity for them to get back in the top 25. Number 26 is going to be UCLA. I wanted to rank UCLA so bad. I was very close to it. I made these last night, and I changed it today. I wanted to put UCLA in the rankings so bad. They beat Michigan State this past week. I felt like that was really close to enough, but there was this one team that I just couldn't get around to. Actually, it was 26, 25, and 24. I had a very tough time ranking. But UCLA is playing lights out right now. They're 18-6. UCLA is back. They were out of the Power 40 for a couple weeks, but yeah, they're completely back now. UCLA is going to be a tournament team, it looks like. Moving into the top 25, number 25 is going to be Creighton. I really wanted to jump UCLA over Creighton. I actually had UCLA ahead of Creighton last week, and you might say UCLA deserved it more. But here's my thinking: Creighton beat Marquette. Maybe I would say Michigan State's better than Marquette. Both Creighton and UCLA won at home. Creighton won by 10 though. They looked really good in that game. And the other thing is Creighton this week plays home against UConn and at St. John's. So there's a good chance. I mean, they could very well lose both those games, and then UCLA will get into the top 25 next week. So at this point, I'm going to put Creighton ahead. I think they're playing a little bit better. Creighton's also playing lights out. They've been amazing. Stephen Ashworth has really stepped up ever since Pop Isaacs was declared out for the year. Creighton's been playing amazing right now, so I feel like deservingly so. They're 40th in offense, 30th in defense, 30th overall in KenPom. I think Creighton at 25 is just fine. Maryland, now you could argue Maryland should be behind Creighton and UCLA, at least as of right now. But I think Maryland's, I don't know. They lost at Ohio State. Ohio State was desperate for a win. I actually thought Ohio State would win that game. But Maryland's still 18-6 in the Big Ten. I feel like they're very much deserving of being a top 25 team. Not to mention they're 18th in KenPom, 21st in offense and 20th in defense. That is ridiculously good. Maryland's another one of those 9 teams that falls into that national champion criteria. Do I think Maryland will win it all? Probably not. But just, some food for thought. They, efficiency-wise, they are almost as efficient as they come. They're very well-rounded. It's a very good team. I've been high on Maryland for a long time. Number 23 is going to be Clemson. Clemson's going to be moving up 3. Clemson won against Duke. I mean, Duke was on like a 16-game win streak. They also beat North Carolina yesterday. That's not a crazy win, but North Carolina was desperate for a win, and at this point, it's looking like North Carolina is going to have to win the ACC to get in, which is crazy. But yeah, Clemson's 25. They just beat Duke. 23 is definitely you could argue even higher. They're top 40 in defense, top 20 in offense. This is a really good team. Clemson right now, second best team in the ACC, pretty clearly actually. Number 22 is going to be Michigan. There it is. It's taking a little bit. Michigan at 23. Michigan, I feel like Michigan's hard to figure out. I think they're a good team. I do. They have a lot of great guys. Danny Wolf's been amazing for them. This past week, they beat Oregon by 4 and Indiana by 3. I feel like Michigan's always in a close game no matter who they play, which could come back to bite them, could actually help them. I mean, like, no matter who, it could be a bad team, it could be a good team. It feels like they're always in a close game. They're 18-5 though. They have a huge week this week. They play home against Purdue tonight. That's a huge. Again, I said huge like 8 times. That's a huge game. And then Sunday they play at Ohio State. That's a really big game for Ohio State. But obviously, that's a huge rivalry as well. Speaking of huge rivalries, next week they play home against Michigan State. So Michigan's got a very tough 3-game stretch. I think they'll be able to figure it out. Vlad Goldin's been amazing. Trey Donaldson, Danny Wolf, like I said. Danny Wolf's averaging 13 and 10. He's been really good. Michigan's ranked 20th in KenPom, top 25 in both offense and defense. That's a very, very good sign for making a deep March Madness run when you have KenPom numbers like that. Number 21 is going to be Mississippi State. They're staying exactly where they are. I think they're just fine where they're at. Maybe they could be bumped down a little bit. They lost against, that was last week. This week they only played 1 game at Georgia, and they won by 1 point. Georgia was desperate. They were desperate for a win. Georgia's another one of those bubble teams that is probably on the outside looking in right now. But Mississippi State won this week. Huge week. There's a lot of good games this week. This week is I've said huge like 15 times in the past minute and a half. This week is a very important week for college basketball. There is a lot of marquee matchups. Mississippi State this week, home against Florida, who is in the AP poll, tied for number 3 right now in the country. Then they play at Ole Miss, which that is as many of you may know, a really really big rivalry. And at Ole Miss, you haven't seen them yet. Spoiler, alert, they're coming up, but they're ahead right now. So yeah, Mississippi State, two very important games this week. If they can split those, I'd be thrilled. I don't even know if they can split those. Home against Florida and then at Ole Miss, that's a tough 2 game stretch. Josh Hubbard, shout out to him. He's averaging 18 points per game for the Bulldogs. In terms of KenPom, they're actually a little bit lower just because their defense struggles a little bit, but they're top 20 in offense. They're ranked 31st right now in KenPom, so not bad, but lower than some teams. But I think Mississippi State is, they're still a very strong team. They're 17-6 in the SEC. That's very hard to pull off. At number 20 is actually where I'm going to put Wisconsin. I know Wisconsin is a lot higher in the AP poll. I think they're like 16. And I've seen bracketologies where they're like a 3 seed. That's absurd to me. That seems a little bit high. I could see a 4 seed. I have them as a low 5 seed, at least in terms of this. But I get it. I mean, they're 19-5 in the Big Ten. They're 12th in KenPom. They're top 10 in offense. I get all that. They're winning. They're playing good. They're playing very good. But like, you look at their resume, they just haven't played a very tough Big Ten schedule. I mean, their best win, the good teams they've played in the Big Ten is UCLA and Maryland. They lost both of those games. They don't have a good Big Ten win. They also lost to Michigan and Illinois. They lost to Marquette. Their best win is Arizona, probably. I mean, which is looking like a better win now, but that was all the way in November. Since then, I mean, like recently in the past like month, their best win probably Ohio State by 2 points at home. Maybe Nebraska. Those aren't great wins. Wisconsin this week, they go at Purdue Saturday, so they're going to have a chance. They have a tough stretch coming up. At Purdue, home against Illinois, and home against Oregon. The last 2 games of that stretch is next week, so we'll see if they're actually legit. But I mean, their resume just it's not all that great. So I'm gonna reserve Wisconsin hype a little bit. Number 19 is where I'm gonna put Kentucky. This may be a little bit low, and I can see why. But there's a group here, at least all the way up, I think to like 15, where actually you could throw in like 14. You could go 14 to 19, could be in any order. Kentucky's ranked 2nd in offense right now, but 90th in defense, which puts them at 22nd overall in KenPom. The offense, very good. They're ranked 15th in the AP poll. I know I'm a little bit lower. This past week they lost at Ole Miss. They got a win over South Carolina. Congrats. South Carolina's like the worst team in the SEC. Now today they have a home game against Tennessee, which is a huge chance to get them back up. They also play at Texas Saturday. Texas is needing a win. I wouldn't be surprised if Texas won that game. But yeah, Kentucky, kind of hit or miss. You don't really know what you're going to get from them. Well, you know what you're going to get. It's going to be high-scoring, fast-paced game. Otega Oweh, averaging 16 points per game. Lamont Butler, Jackson Robinson. This is a very good Kentucky team. I don't want to make it seem like this is like a bad ranking. I mean, like I said, 14 through 19 can go in any order. You could make a very fair argument that Kentucky should be like, I would say you could make an argument Kentucky could be as high as 15, but in my eyes, I think as of right now, 19 is where I'm going to put them. 18 is going to be Ole Miss. This is part of the reason I didn't want to raise Ole Miss too much, and I didn't want to drop Kentucky too much. I did drop them 6 for 1 loss. But yeah, Ole Miss, I mean, they got a huge win against Kentucky. I feel like I got to put Ole Miss ahead of them. They're 18-6. They're higher than them in KenPom. They have a better record than them. They just beat them. They're 31st in offense, 14th in defense. Ole Miss is a very good team. Chris Beard has got himself a squad. This week they have a huge home game against Mississippi State Saturday. That is a very good test for them. We'll see what the Rebels can do. Number 17 is going to be Missouri. Now, you could argue Missouri should be behind these teams. I don't get the Missouri hate. They're ranked 21st in the AP poll. Did we not just see what they just? I mean, look at what they've been doing recently. Going all the way back to January, they beat Vanderbilt. They win at Florida by 1 point. They beat Arkansas. They lose at Texas, but then they respond with a home win over Ole Miss, a dominant 27-point road win over Mississippi State. Then this past week, they go at Tennessee. They lose by 4 points. They play Texas A&M at home, and they lose by 3 points. Those are two great teams, two top 10 teams. How are we dropping? I mean, I know they lost 2 games this week, but I didn't expect them to win either of those games, and they lost by a combined 7 points in those 2 games. So I only dropped them down 2. They're still 17-6, by the way. They were 17-4 coming in this week. That's crazy. They're ranked 24th in KenPom, top 15 in offense, top 50 in defense. This is a really good Missouri team. Number 16 is going to be Kansas. They lost, but they're staying put. You could argue Kansas should be 19. I wouldn't hate that. I mean, I didn't want to drop them because they did blow out Iowa State earlier in the week, so that was good enough for me to keep them where they're at. But then they lost against Kansas State. Hunter Dickinson just picks and chooses when he wants to decide to show up. It's really confusing. The Kansas overall is just confusing. They came in as the number 1 team, pretty consensus coming into the season, number 1 ranked team. Now they're down at 16. You could argue they should be even lower. They're 11th in KenPom, top 40 in offense, 5th in defense. The offense is definitely holding them back. I mean, you can tell watching them. They struggle to score points sometimes. I mean, they're probably averaging 70. I want to see. They're probably averaging about 70 points per game. It's really not it's not a great look if you are Kansas. I actually worry. I mean, Kansas, I don't know. I mean, there's Bill Self's such a good coach. They have so many good players. I can't see them losing early, but the way they're playing, I mean, you'd argue the way Kansas is playing, they could be as of right now, Kansas might be playing worse than Creighton and Clemson. You could make that argument. It's not a crazy thing to say. I'll keep them where they're at just because they blew out Iowa State, and people tend to forget that. They tend to just look at recency. But I don't know. Kansas is just very confusing. I mean, you go out and blow out Iowa State, but then you get blown out by Kansas State. What do we? It's just very inconsistent. That definitely does worry me. 15 is going to be Marquette. They continue to drop. They're actually at 18th in the AP poll. I mean, this whole section here, 15 through 20, it's me and the AP poll disagree a lot. Marquette this past week lost at St. John's by 6, and then at Creighton by 10. They've now lost 3 games in a row to UConn, St. John's, and Creighton, the other good teams in the Big East. They're now at 18-6. I still think Marquette will be fine. They're not, a 2 seed like we were thinking. They're probably not the best team in the Big East. They may not even be the second best team in the Big East. But I still haven't ranked the second highest team. But Cam Jones is still averaging 19 a game. This is still a very good Marquette team. They're going to be fine. They're going to make the tournament. They're 22nd in offense, 26th in defense, 23rd overall. They're a very well-rounded team, very well coached. They have so many players. This Marquette team is still a good team. They've gone through a bit of a tough stretch. You would like to have won one of those 3 games against the actual good teams in the Big East. It's unfortunate to drop all 3 because now they're going to have to fall. I mean, they were as high as, were they ever in the top 6? I think they were. But yeah, they're going to drop a little bit. They've lost 3 in a row. It's only fair. Number 14 is going to be Memphis, moving up 3, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, I saw the AP poll, I looked at it, I was like, there's no way Memphis is 14. There's no way Memphis is 14's best. Well, I have them at 14, and it's hard to argue. Marquette lost, Kansas lost, Missouri lost twice, Marquette also lost twice. I don't think Ole Miss lost, but last week they were 24. I'm not going to jump them up to 14 over one good win. Kentucky lost. Wisconsin didn't lose, but they didn't beat anyone. I think Mississippi State lost. I mean, and there's only so far you can go down because Memphis, keep in mind, was ranked 17 last week. So it's I guess Memphis is here. They're 20-4, but they're squeaking by these American teams, and I know they had a very strong non-conference resume, which is why they're getting so high, in these rankings in the first place. I mean, look at this. They beat Missouri. They beat San Francisco, who might be a tournament team. They beat UConn. They beat Michigan State. They lost to Auburn, but Auburn's number one. They beat Memphis on the road. Uh, they beat Ole Miss. Look at this. You wouldn't expect this from Memphis. They also have one of the best guards in the country, P.J. Haggerty, averaging 22 points a game. Tyrese Hunter, Dane Danger, Colby Rogers. This is a really good Memphis team. So I'm actually fine with putting him at 14 right now. And if teams behind him start to pick themselves back up, get some good wins, then Memphis could drop back down. But I think Memphis is pretty much a lock at this point for the tournament. I mean, you look at their resume; it's so strong. There's definitely a tier gap here. I think Texas Tech moving down one at number 13 for me. They lost at Arizona this past week. They did win against Baylor. That was a good win earlier in the week. But they've had a tough stretch. Their schedule eases up a little bit until like the end of February. So Texas Tech should be a tournament team. They're 18-5 right now. Number 12 is going to be Arizona. Arizona did just beat Texas Tech, so I think it's only fair for Arizona to be ahead. They won 82-73. It was a very good game, but Arizona was pretty much leading the whole way through. It never got crazy. Texas Tech was there with them the whole time, but Arizona was in control of that game. Arizona is completely back. I mean, they were out of the Power 40 at one point. They started off like top. I mean, they probably started off around this range preseason. Then they dropped all the way out of the Power 40. Now they're back up to 12, and they're looking to continue to rise. Arizona is one of the hottest teams in the country. Tonight they play at Kansas State. Now, Kansas State is another one of the hottest teams right now. They also play home against Houston on Saturday. This Kansas State game could be a trap game, so Arizona could be in a bit of trouble. We'll see how they look. Caleb Love's been amazing for them. This team has very good guard play. This team could definitely go far in March. And KenPom wise, they are very high as well. I think they're like top 10, 10th in KenPom. 14th in offense, 18th in defense. So Arizona is another one of those teams that fits that national champion criteria. We'll see, but Arizona has the tools to make a run, definitely for sure. They're playing lights out right now. Number 11 is going to be Michigan State. Now they're dropping down 2 because they lost to UCLA. It was on the road. It was by 2. UCLA is ranked 26 right now for me. That's not a bad loss at all. Michigan State has kind of struggled a bit. Let me take this back. They were 18-2 at one point. Now they're 19-4. They've lost 2 of their last 3. But I mean, we knew coming into February that they were going to lose some games. They weren't going to go undefeated in the Big Ten, right? And you look at this next stretch. This last couple game. Actually, their whole rest of their schedule. Home against Indiana, at Illinois, home against Purdue, at Michigan, at Maryland, home against Wisconsin, at Iowa, and then home against Michigan. That is a brutal close to the season. They're 19-4 right now. They're definitely going to lose a couple of these games. If they win, I'd be very, very impressed. Jaden Akins has been amazing for them. Richardson as well. He just had a really good game. Michigan State, still a very good team. Still, maybe the best team in the Big Ten. They're 17th in KenPom right now. 26th in offense, 12th in defense. Very high numbers there. But I do have to drop them out of the top 10, unfortunately, just because of that loss. Because there was some teams right behind them that I felt, as of right now, are just narrowly ahead of Michigan State. Moving on into the top 10, though. Number 10 is going to be St. John's. And I thought about this. I thought, can I put St. John's in the top 10? I did think about this a lot. I wanted to keep Michigan State, but I thought it was only fair. St. John's, let's look at St. John's. St. John's is 21-3. And this past week, they played Marquette and UConn. You could argue those are, besides St. John's, the 2 best teams in the Big East. St. John's starts off the week with a 6-point win over Marquette. Closes the week with a 6-point win at UConn. So they got 2 Big East wins against the 2 best teams, you could argue, in the Big East. One on the road, one at home. And they controlled both of those games. The reason I hesitate to put them in the top 10 is just because their 3-point shooting is just bad. I mean, it is awful. They're one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the country. But they force you to play their way. They're one of the old school team. They're like bully ball. I mean, they have the second best defense in college basketball right now, only behind Tennessee. Um, and it's like clearly the second best. Like third place is pretty far off. St. John's, they're physical. They play hard, and I really like that for March. Also, another thing to look at is 5 of their top 6 scorers are guards. So not only are they physical, they have a lot of guards who can score. R.J. Lewis is averaging 18 points a game. I think what's this guy's name? Kadari Richmond. I think that's his name. Um, he's a spark plug. He's averaging 12 points a game. He's been amazing. 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and a block. I mean, he does it all. He might be their best player. Um, but yeah, St. John's they got to be top 10. I do worry about their 3-point shooting, but they're 21-3 in the Big East right now, and they just beat maybe the 2 best teams in the Big East. So St. John's definitely deserving. I think they got to be 10. You could argue maybe Michigan State ahead. Everything from 7 to 11, I think, could be argued. That's kind of um, essentially like their own tier. Maybe you could throw Texas Tech and Arizona in there, but I don't know. But anyways, I think top 6 are definitely in their own tier right now. Number 9 is going to be Iowa State. We thought Iowa State is almost a shoo-in as a 1 seed. Now they're looking a little, they're in a little bit of trouble. They lost at Kansas by 17. That put them on a 2-game losing streak, I think. No, actually 3. That put them on a 3-game losing streak. They responded with a win over TCU. Now they play at UCF. UCF's a team who is desperately needing a win. Could that be a bad spot for Iowa State? I still like this team. Curtis Jones, Keyshawn Gilbert, Tim and Lipsey. This is still a good team. But they're definitely not as good as we once thought. They're still ranked 8th in KenPom. They're still probably going to get a 2 or 3 seed if I had to guess. They very well might win the Big 12. 18th in offense, 7th in defense. Computer numbers still very high, but definitely not a top 3 team like they were for however many weeks it was in a row, like 10 weeks. But still a top 10 team in my opinion. Number 8's going to be A&M. To continue to rise, just continue to win. They're 18-5. They won at Missouri. That's a very good win. I think A&M right now is playing amazing. Obviously, Wade Taylor came back. He's 15 points a game. I think it's Zurich Phelps. I don't know if I'm saying that right. He's also averaging 15 though. Um, you're always gonna have a tough schedule in the SEC, but Texas A&M 18-5, one of the best teams in the SEC right now. Yeah, they're actually 4th in the SEC. They're actually the 5th highest ranked SEC team, but they're 4th in the SEC right now. Yeah, but Texas A&M, man, they are playing. They're playing legit. KenPom wise, they're 14th right now, 6th in defense, 36th in offense. But I mean, you got guys who can just go off and give you like 30. So that's obviously a huge. Texas A&M's what I'm saying. Texas A&M is a really good team. Number 7 is going to be Purdue. They're moving up 1 spot. Purdue, as of right now, is my highest ranked Big Ten team. They're 8th in offense, 32nd in defense, 7th overall actually in KenPom. I think 7 is where I'm going to put them. I feel like that's fine. They're 19-5. This week they have a huge week at Michigan and home against Wisconsin. That is 2 very important games. Both those teams, all 3 of those teams, Purdue, Wisconsin, Michigan, all going to be tournament teams clearly. That at Michigan game is going to be something must watch tonight. We'll see. But yeah, Braden Smith, Trey Coffin-Ryan, all those guys, they're playing really good right now. Number 6, going to be Houston, dropping down 1. Now they didn't lose, but I do have to drop them 1. Yesterday they beat Baylor. Congrats. Saturday they play at Arizona. That is a huge game, but I feel like Houston, nothing against them. They didn't do anything wrong. They're still ranked third in KenPom. They're sixth in offense and third in defense. That's ridiculous. They're 20-4, and them, Duke, and Auburn are neck and neck for 1, 2, and 3 in KenPom right now. But yes, there was a team below them that I felt deserved to jump ahead. Same thing with Tennessee here, moving down one. If I'm not mistaken, but I don't. For some reason, in the back of my head, it's telling me they lost, but I don't think they lost last week. Yeah, they beat Missouri, which is a really good win, and then they won at Oklahoma. This week they play at Kentucky and home against Vanderbilt. Those are two actually very tough games. I could actually see them losing the Kentucky game, but they're still the best defense in the country. Outside of the top 30 in KenPom does worry me a little. But you have teams similar, just opposite, like Purdue, Alabama, also in this range, and you don't see me saying the same thing about them. Tennessee's still getting one first place vote in the AP poll. I thought that was interesting, something to talk about. I don't know why. I mean, they are a very good team, but Chaz Lanier, Sakai Ziegler. I mean, this is a stacked team. Defensive first. Tennessee is maybe a 1 seed right now. I think right now they might be a 1 seed. Number 4 is going to be Duke, moving down 2. They finally lost. They were 2 for what felt like 10 weeks in a row. It actually might have been. They lost at Clemson. Congrats to Clemson. That is a huge win. Clemson's pretty much locked up a tournament spot with that win. But yeah, Duke 20-3. The only game that I can see them losing is maybe at Illinois in a couple weeks, or at UNC last game of the year just because of the rivalry. But they dominated UNC, so I don't know if that's even possible. Cooper Flagg is almost at 20 points a game. He's been ridiculous. Con Kneppel as well. He's almost getting overshadowed from Cooper Flagg, but he has been amazing. Do not sleep on him. Duke's still second in KenPom. They're still the only top 5 team in both offense and defense. Duke still definitely a national champion favorite. They actually still might be the betting favorite. I wouldn't be surprised. But they do have to drop after the Clemson loss. Number 3 is going to be Florida. I have Florida ahead of Duke. There's no ties for me because it's my opinion. I have Florida ahead of Duke. First of all, they play in a better conference. They have the same record. Florida is going to have the better strength of schedule. They're going to have the better strength of record, at least I believe. Duke. It's not like Duke played a bad non-conference schedule. Just Florida has been doing everything more recently because they're playing in the SEC. Florida, not to mention, 4th in offense, 9th in defense. They're one of only 3 teams top 10 in both offense and defense. I know Duke is top 5 in both. The only other team is Houston. But yeah, I realized that a couple weeks ago that Florida had that good of a defense, which I did not know. But Florida just got the best win that any team has right now. They went into Auburn and blew them out. They ended up only winning by 9. They blew them out. If you watch that game, Florida blew them out at in their own building. That was a huge win. Now they may have a hangover game here at Mississippi State. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Mississippi State won that game. But if Florida can win that game, you could argue Florida should be 2 right now. I mean, you could make that argument, and I wouldn't hate it. You could do it. You could say Florida right now should be 1. They just beat Auburn, and Alabama hasn't really played anyone of much significance recently. Here, let me just reveal the next 2. Alabama hasn't played anyone recently of much significance, so you could argue Florida should be ahead of Alabama. And then with Florida being at 2 and Auburn being at 1, well, Florida just went into Auburn and won. So how can you put Auburn ahead? So you could make the argument Florida should be 1. I'm going to keep Bama ahead of them. They've actually played, recently they haven't, in the past week or 2, they haven't played the top of the SEC. But they play home against Auburn on Saturday. It's going to be maybe the game of the year. That's going to be a great game. Mark Sears is doing amazing. Grant Nelson, Aiden Holloway. You know these guys. They were there for the run last year to the Final Four. Alabama 6 in KenPom. But Auburn, I'm still going to have it number 1. I think that's fair. They're 21-2. Still have the best record, of any team besides Drake, which is weird. But Drake's not getting conversation for number one. Anyways, Auburn's still 21-2. They have one less loss than Duke, Alabama, Florida. All the teams that are right there. Record's not everything, but Auburn still has the number one strength of schedule. Alabama actually has two, and they're going to both play each other. That is battle for number one. Whoever wins will be number one, I'll tell you that. Alabama gets it at home, too, which is a huge advantage. Huge rivalry game as well. I mean, that is going to be absolutely absurd. Let's take a look at Alabama's remaining schedule, by the way. This is definitely interesting. Home against Auburn. Tonight at Texas. Texas is bubble team desperate of a win. That could be a trap game. Home against Auburn. At Missouri, ranked inside the top 25. Home against Kentucky, ranked inside the top 25. Home against Mississippi State, ranked inside the top 25. Then let's take a look at their 3 games in March at Tennessee, ranked 5th right now. Home against Florida, ranked 3rd right now. And to close out the year at Auburn, which is number 1. Ridiculous. Alabama is going to be set up for a 1 seed if they continue to play at the level they're playing right now, and maybe even the number 1 overall seed. We'll see what happens Saturday. But yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those have got to be the national title contenders, which is crazy because the past couple weeks I've been saying it's only Auburn and Duke. Now I'm throwing Alabama and Florida in there, and we'll see how they play against Auburn. But I think as of right now, Auburn is still the number 1 team. I know they lost to Florida at home. You can make the argument Florida should be 1, but I can't jump Florida from 6 to 1. I mean, I guess I can. I could do it. These are my rankings, but I think Auburn is still deserving of 1. And maybe the reason I didn't put Florida at 2 is just so I wouldn't have to put them at 1, because you could very well make the argument Florida should be ahead of Bama right now. But then, like I said, if I do that, then I got to put Florida ahead of Auburn. So I'm going to keep them, and then Duke. I actually thought about keeping Duke at 2. That was actually my original thought when Duke lost. I was like, I think I might keep Duke at 2. Just because, Auburn also lost. I was like, I think I might keep Duke at 2. But I did end up jumping Alabama and Florida ahead of them. But yeah, crazy week last week. Top 2 teams both lost. This week, even crazier. So you're going to want to stay tuned for next week's rankings because there's going to be some huge shakeup. This is a crazy Tuesday slate tonight, and Saturday it's only going to get crazier. Alabama versus Auburn. There's plenty of good games, so make sure you subscribe. Turn on the notice to make sure you don't miss. We're posting these every single Monday typically, but you can expect them every single week. NBA videos every single week as well. We do college football and NFL as well. MLB season right around the corner. March right around the corner. We're predicting all 31 conference tournament. We're predicting all 31 conference tournaments. So make sure you subscribe for that. We're trying at 1,000 by the end of the year. If you could help us get a little closer to our goal, that'd be greatly appreciated. But with all that being said, apologize for the long video. That is going to do it. Hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you guys later this week with another episode of NBA Playoff Watch.